Turning now, though, to Colorado. The family of a boy hit and killed on his bicycle by a teacher who was texting is now speaking out against her sentence. 10-year-old Oliver Stratton was riding his bicycle when he was hit by a vehicle driven by Amy Weiss. Authorities say she sent a text message 11 seconds before she hit the young boy. Weiss admitted that she deleted the text that she sent and received just prior to the crash, and a jury found her guilty of careless driving, resulting in death.
Ms. Weiss, if you'll please stand. We, the jury, find the defendant, Amy Jackson Weiss, guilty of count 1, careless driving. Regarding the verdict question as to this count, the jury finds that the careless driving result in death. The answer is yes. You may be seated.
Moments later, emotions boiled over after the district attorney asked for a cash bond pending sentencing. Weiss's defense attorney lashed out, saying everything about this case has been blown out of proportion.
First of all, Judge, I'm outraged by the district attorney at this time asking that my client post a bond under these circumstances. If anyone has been harassed for the last year, it's been my client and the family. There's been attempts to try to have her job terminated. There's been a campaign and pressure on the district attorney's office to try to make this case more than what it is. Judge, this is a careless driving case, and that's all it is.
On Friday, Weiss received the maximum sentence allowed under Colorado law: 1 year in jail for careless driving resulting in death and 364 days for tampering with evidence to be served concurrently. But Weiss is appealing that sentence. Let's bring in our special guests this hour, the parents of Oliver Stratton, Rod and Clarissa Stratton. Thank you so much for joining us, and my deepest sympathies expressed to you for your loss of Oliver. First, I do want to hear your reaction to the sentence.
Absolutely. Going through a court proceedings like this is extraordinarily painful, especially when it comes at the result of a crime that ended the life of your little boy. In the aftermath, we feel extraordinarily grateful for the district attorney prosecuting this case and the police and investigative team that put the work together in order to hold Ms. Weiss accountable for the crimes that she did commit. And we're grateful that a jury and a judge did hold her accountable, but we feel like that brings a measure of accountability, but it's not justice because the laws surrounding texting and driving are not just. My son, this case was tried as a traffic misdemeanor in traffic court. My 10-year-old son lost his entire life and we sat in traffic court. The penalty is not right for texting and driving. It is a purposeful choice that should be tried absolutely as a felony, the same way that drinking and driving is. It is a purposeful choice that needs to be held accountable in our country.
Clarissa, thank you so much for that. There is growing support and activists out there that are asking for these kind of changes that you're talking about. Rod, talk about your reaction as well and what changes you would like to see take place. I'm certain that you share the same sentiments as your wife.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been, a very difficult year and a half for us. I think in the end, the judge saw just how egregious this case is and matched that with the maximum sentence, with Colorado. I think where we'd like to see is we really want to see texting and driving elevated to the same level as drunk driving. It's not the same thing as changing your radio. It's not the same thing as eating. It is closer in common with drunk driving, only in this case, you constantly make a choice of sound mind to go and do this irresponsible thing that can take someone's life.
Clarissa, can you talk about any kind of conversations, or have you had any kind of conversations with lawmakers there in Colorado? And what has been the feeling as to any sort of legislation that could be brought forth? Anyone interested in sponsoring any kind of legislation to make some changes there in Colorado?
Definitely. We have been in talks with other victims' families and also an organization called Bicycle Colorado in terms of strengthening laws that would protect vulnerable road users. We hope to have a meeting with the senator later this week to talk about increasing the penalty for distracted driving in our state. But this is a nationwide problem that we feel like is a national epidemic that requires the attention of every state in this country. It is something that is taking lives every day and is vastly underestimated in the danger that it promotes. And it's such a purposeful choice. It's not an accident. It's not something that just happens to someone. It is a choice to be negligent on the roadway and endanger people's lives around you. And we're not doing enough as a country. Like, our laws have not caught up with the seriousness of this crime. And we don't even have accurate numbers of it because it's not being reported fully to the way that it should be. So we are in talks for changes for the penalty of distracted driving to be increased to, we would like to see it be a felony. It truly does rival drunk driving in every way. Including the somewhat public apathy that comes because people want to have sympathy for a driver who endangers the lives of others instead of a victim who has lost their entire life on the road.
Rod, one of the things that bothered me about this situation in the case is the defendant here, she pled guilty to deleting some of those texts. So showing those actions that she knew she's a teacher, that she had been maybe doing something that was something she wasn't supposed to do. We heard defense counsel there in court saying that it's outrageous the way the DA has prosecuted this case. As a family who has lost their young boy, that had to be difficult to listen to.
Absolutely. Listening to the defense attorney, I think he's very dramatic, and it's very difficult for him to talk about our son's death in this way. This teacher should be held to a higher standard when it comes to care for kids. She specifically said that she knew that children play on that street, and so she needs to exercise more caution there. And she clearly did not. You know, she had the means to do voice to text on her car. She chose not to use that. There's, so many cases of her just deciding to do this action, having other options, and just not following it. So I feel like this is particularly egregious, and the defense just kept wanting to minimize it as, our son was at fault, our son was in the street and he shouldn't have been there. But really, for a long time, he was at a marked crossing.
I know in some states, I know when I used to work in Illinois government, there was a form that went around, or a pledge that you could take saying that you're not going to text and drive. I assume they have that in other states as well. Clarissa, can you speak to that at all? Is that something going on in Colorado?
Not that I have come across. However, we started a charity on behalf of our little boy called Ollie's Bike Parade, and we're hoping to have a distracted driving awareness day early this summer at Colorado State University, and that is going to be a component of that event. It's a memorial bike parade in honor of the children who've lost their lives on the roadway. Last year, we hosted the first one in honor of our little boy, but we always intended for it to honor all children who have lost their lives on the road. And it's a celebration of childhood and also a somber reminder of the seriousness of what happens when we get behind the wheel of a car. And so we will be doing pledges at that in order to encourage people to stop texting and driving, put down their phones when they drive, and advocate for stronger penalties that protect everyone on the road.
And Clarissa, in closing here, just any final message to people out there when they're getting behind the wheel, and maybe talk just a little bit about your son and how this loss just has been so devastating for you and your family.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for giving me a minute to talk about my little boy. My son Oliver was 10 years old, and he radiated everything joy. He cared about other people deeply and spent his short time on this earth making sure people around him were safe and happy and feeling good about who they were and how they existed in the world. And it was a joy to be his mother. My husband feels the same. It was the greatest privilege of our life to be his parents. And because of that, it could only be the greatest loss of our lives to lose him. My family has been incredibly deeply impacted in ways that we will not ever recover from. And when you love someone as much as we love Ollie, we'll continue to miss him between like every beat of our heart for the rest of our lives. There will never be a day where we don't think of him and miss him and wish he was here with us. And so if I was allowed to give one message, it would be, please don't text and drive. In honor of my little boy, put your phone down in the car. There are lives riding on it and depending on it. This is absolutely something that is not an accident. It doesn't have to happen. It couldn't happen to anyone. It happens to people who disregard the lives of others. And when you text and drive, you endanger everyone around you on the road, and not just strangers. You endanger people who are sitting in the back seat of your own vehicle, and you endanger your own life. So put down your phone when you drive and make sure that you get to make it home, because we'll spend the rest of our lives advocating for the safety of people in hopes that other children get to grow up in a way that our boy did not.
Clarissa, thank you so much for that beautiful message. Clarissa Stratton, Ron, thank you so much for joining us. Hearts and prayers go out to you and your lovely son, Ollie.